We talking about practice. Not a game, not a game. We talking about practice.
Happy Wednesday to you, everyone out there. I appreciate you joining After Practice Podcast with myself, Lake Lewis, and this is a great day for you on Wednesday. If you are a sports fan, you've got a buffet of games tonight that you will be able to watch. You know, you have the NBA playoffs, you have the NHL playoffs, and then of course you have the NFL minicamps, mandatory minicamps wrapping up. Today was no different right here in Washington. The Washington football team wrapped up day 3 of their mandatory minicamp. And I would say out of all the 3 practices, I was at all 3 of them. Today was probably the most spirited. Obviously, guys were looking forward to getting out of there, getting home, but nevertheless, it was a really good day of work for the Washington football team. So today, I wanted to just give you some notes, some things that I noticed, for the first 3 days, and specifically today, because like I said, I think today they got after it pretty well. As always, folks, you can follow this program on sportsjourney.com. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Sports Journey. And then, of course, you can subscribe to the podcast on any of your audio carriers, which are Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, you name it, we're on there. Definitely appreciate all the support out there. And, let's get right into it, for this day 3. I think the big thing here around town is who's going to be the quarterback for the Washington football team. And yes, most people assume it's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick. But I have to tell you, and I'm not trying to stir the pot here or create any controversy, but from my eyes, from what I've seen over these 3 days, I think Taylor Heinicke has every opportunity and every right to compete for that starting quarterback job. He's done some good things out there. He's made some nice deep ball throws. He's mobile. He's processing information pretty fast. I actually tweeted about that yesterday, that I'm impressed with how fast he processes things. And I'm not necessarily meaning just the playbook. I mean, as live bullets are flying around. I mean, he's actually doing some things that I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick could do from a physical standpoint. Maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick has the edge over Taylor from a experience standpoint. He's seen just about every defense possible over his 16, 17 years in the league. But again, with my own eyes, and I don't think I'm alone in saying this, Taylor Heinicke to me looked like he had the better of the 3 quarterbacks who are vying for the starting job. I think, he had the better of the 3 days as far as just what I saw. He made a couple really nice deep ball throws. Again, made some nice reads underneath, dumped the ball down when he needed to. Has he been flawless? Absolutely not. I mean, he had a bad pick today, but nevertheless, I think he's made clearly more better plays than bad plays. And I think that should be something that needs to be taken into consideration. I'm going to get the chance to ask Coach Ron Rivera, is this really an open competition at quarterback, or is this Ryan Fitzpatrick's job? Unless he just, tragically falls apart, is it Ryan Fitzpatrick's job? I didn't get a chance to ask him that today in our press conferences, but I will make it a point to try to get that answer from him and see what he thinks. Because, again, he said all along, it's about competition. It's about getting guys to compete, and the best players will be on the field. From what I've seen over the last year and a half, that's exactly what he's doing. He's created competition at just about every position, and it was on display today. It really was. The offensive line, it's going to be a new-looking offensive line. No more Morgan Moses on the right side of the field, to man the right tackle position. So now, today, you saw Cornelius Lucas, who actually last year was playing left tackle. Cornelius Lucas got a lot of work today at right tackle, and he looked really good. He really did. It actually looked as if perhaps that could be your opening day right tackle. On the left side, clearly was Charles Leno, and I think he solidified his spot as the left tackle for this team. Barring an injury or God forbid anything like that happen to anyone, he's going to be your left tackle, and I think that's a great move for the Washington football team. So you might have your bookend tackles. What does that say about Samuel Cosmi, who was their second-round draft pick out of Texas? I don't think it says anything negative. I just think that, they're shuffling lineups in there to see who can do what. Eric Flowers, obviously, was at right tackle. right guard, and then you have, him being at left guard. So, I mean, guys can rotate around. I think the locks, though, obviously, are a Pro Bowl right guard, Brandon Scherf. He's a linchpin. He'll be there. Chase Roulier would be your starting center. And, of course, I think Charles Leno would be your starting left tackle. The other open two spots, is it going to be Flowers, at left guard? Who else can step in there? You have other veterans who have a presence, but I do expect for this offensive line to be a pretty decent offensive line. I really do. I think they're going to take another step. They're young, don't get me wrong, but they're young with experience. Brandon Scherf isn't necessarily an old man by any means. Charles Leno's not necessarily an old man by any means either, nor is Cornelius Lucas, but I think that when you think of the Keith Ishmaels of the world, when you think of Cosby, when you think of some of these other guys that they have in there, there's some younger guys that are going to get an opportunity to play for the Washington football team this year. They're going to get a chance to protect whoever's going to be the starting quarterback. All odds it's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick. Again, I'm saying that I think Taylor Heineke has a shot. I really do. Some of the big plays that were made out there today, De'Ami Brown, wide receiver from North Carolina, one of their draft picks, he looks pretty explosive. I mean, the speed and the deep ball tracking that he showed at North Carolina was on display today. Great deep ball catch. Beat his man, beat Benjamin St-Juste, who's had a heck of a mini camp. I mean, he's another guy we're going to talk about here shortly when we switch to the defensive side of the ball. But today, De'Ami Brown, really stood out. He really showed that deep ball threat that this team, pretty much had been lacking for a couple years since the days of Deshaun Jackson. I'm not going to say reminded me of him a little bit, but, just seeing him streaking down the field like that was impressive to see. So I'm sure the coaching staff of the Washington football team is excited about what he possibly can bring to the table. Another receiver that a lot of people, I don't want to say have written off, but, he didn't have that rookie campaign that a lot of people thought. He had to deal with an injury and just get acclimated to, the speed of the NFL, was Antonio Gandy. So, Gandy Golden. So you think about AGG and him using his size. Well, today he did that. He had a heck of a catch in traffic. And it was a big catch for the kid because I think it helps his confidence. It helps get him back because his body language the first day or two, just, he was out there. I don't know what they're thinking underneath that helmet, but just from what your eyes see, he needed that catch, and it was a good catch, and his teammates ran down, to support him on the catch and hype him up a little bit. So, that's the kind of stuff you want to see. You want to see your teammates there for you as well. And I did think it was kind of interesting. Another thing that happened today was, as I mentioned, Benjamin St-Juste from Minnesota, another draft pick, long physical corner. Yesterday in day 2, he was phenomenal. He was all over the place, and you're doing well when your teammates and coaches come up to you after practice and just let you know you were out there balling. So he was. Well, don't think that did not get the attention of the offense. And today they targeted him. They came after him. The deep ball that De'Ami Brown caught was actually against St-Juste, and he gave him a nice move up and under and ran right by him down the sidelines. And the first guy that was out there hooping and hollering and letting St-Juste know that, this stuff is going to be coming was none other than Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin, his first year was quiet. Second year became like a household name in this area and started to turn some heads around the NFL as one of the up-and-coming, young wide receivers. Well, he's taken that captain role to a whole nother level now. I mean, he's vocal. He's talking, he's chirping with defensive players and defenders, and he let St-Juste know today. He did, and he was letting his teammates know, his counterparts on offense know what to do to get by him. He said, I watched the film and, just run right by him, blah, blah, blah. So, it was friendly chatter, and that's the kind of stuff you want to see from a young team that's trying to become consistently good. You want to see that competition fostered at every position. I started to see that, it started to come alive today. It was, a quiet practice for a couple days, and they would get after it every now and then. But today, the heat was turned up, and you saw 2 units going after it. Everything that you see on this offense tells you that they've got some players that they can be an explosive offense. Obviously, it all boils down to quarterback play. Whoever is the quarterback, can they get adequate, consistently good play from that position? Because if they do, the talent's there for the Washington football team to take the next step. They were a playoff team last year, but they were a playoff team in a bad division with a losing record. But nevertheless, they still were a playoff team. And if you're young players and that's something you get a taste of early in your career, that's what you want. That's a good look. So if they can get that adequate play, we talked about the offensive line, we talked about the receivers, the tight end position. They're still going to, have to figure some things out. I think Logan Thomas is clearly one of their best offensive weapons. I'm looking for him to have a Pro Bowl year this year. I thought he should have made the Pro Bowl last year. I think that he has an opportunity to take another step forward as just one of the premier tight ends in the league. I really think he's got that kind of skill set to take that lead, but naturally depends on your quarterback. You need a quarterback that's going to be looking for him underneath, looking for him as a safety valve. And I think if, you get that, Logan Thomas, he had 72 catches last year, could have easily over 80 this year, So the offense is in place, running back position, clearly, Antonio Gibson looks good. He does. And I still don't even think he's 100% healthy. I still think, he's getting over having that injured toe. But man, is he explosive, and he looks bigger to me. I was talking to a colleague of mine, JP Finley, about how big he looks, and he just looks so much bigger out on the field. It makes Peyton Barber look smaller, and Peyton Barber I thought was a big dude. So, that's a running back position that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out with J.D. McKissick, Antonio Gibson, Peyton Barber, Lamar Miller, who's a veteran. Has a chance. And then, of course, Jared Patterson, kid that they drafted out. He was an undrafted player that they picked up from Buffalo as unsigned free agent. He's showing some things. He's quick, he's powerful. Clearly the kid had a really great career at Buffalo, in college. So, there's potential all around with this team. Not trying to sell any, all hope here, because there's some things that they've got to get better at. And naturally, that's that quarterback spot. But this roster, this offense, the turnover that's happened is unbelievable. I joke all the time, if some of these guys walk by me without a mask on in the mall, I probably wouldn't know who they are, because that's how much this offense is, has turned over. That's how much this roster on a whole has turned over. Before we break down the defense, I just want to let you know you can subscribe and obviously to the podcast, to sportsjourney.com, but more importantly, you can follow me on social media, on Twitter at Lake Lewis, on Instagram and Facebook at Lake Lewis Jr., and then of course Sports Journey on social media. On Twitter, it's Sports Journey. On Facebook and Instagram, it is Sports Journey.com, just like sportsjourney.com, but it's sportsjourney.com. So make sure you check us out on those outlets. Appreciate that. Defense. Look, this is supposed to be the calling card for the Washington football team in 2021. This is supposed to be what gets them to wherever they're going to be. If they're going to be a playoff team again, it's going to ride on this defense. And there's no reason to think that this defense won't be better than what they were last year. And they were pretty good last year. You're bringing back Matt Ioannidis, a defensive lineman who I always thought pound for pound, motor for motor, might be their best. They're bringing him back, and he looks good so far. Then on top of that, you have another year of Chase Young. He was a rookie last year, and obviously, he mentioned this week that he was playing with a hip injury that he didn't, talk about to a lot of people. So if that's the case, year two, he should be, more adept at, reading coverages and seeing how teams are blocking him on the edge. Well, think about it. If he's healthy, which he said that's his main goal, to get to the regular season 100% healthy, that's a scary thought. That's a scary thought for the rest of the NFL, especially the NFC East, that he can be that much better. And he's naturally going to get better. Then you think about the acquisitions of, Will Jackson from Cincinnati. Top corner in free agency. William Jackson's here, and he looks pretty good, Then you bring in Bobby McCain from Miami, a Pro Bowl caliber safety, which may have been what some people thought was the weak link on this team, was the safety position, even though I thought Jeremy Reeves played really well last year in the stretch where they started him towards the end of the season and through the playoffs. I thought he played really well. But Bobby McCain today was, without question, the best player on the field. He was everywhere. He had 2 interceptions, ball hawk type of player, and you saw why they brought him in. And I think it's safe to say if he practices like that, he's their starting free safety. There's no question in my mind he'll be at the starting free safety, and starting strong safety is going to be Cam Curl. So that's a good look for the Washington football team if he can continue to emerge on that defense like that. Lots of different players. I mentioned St. Juste earlier, got beat by De'Ami Brown today, in the deep ball. But yesterday, he was the best player on the defense. He literally was making plays all over the field. So, again, I say these things because, it's good to hear that there's that kind of competition. It's good to hear that you have guys getting after it and playing hard-nosed football. But keep in mind, they don't have pads on. It's minicamp. It's not training camp. It's not preseason. So some of these things could change. One good practice, 2 good practices doesn't make a season. But it's a start. And it's a good start for a football team that needs everybody to be all hands on deck. They need everyone to rally around each other and make their units even better. Again, Chase Young had some great sound bites yesterday in his press conference, Zoom conference with us after practice. And, he said that on paper, yeah, they can be the best defense, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't go out and produce on the field. You have to go out and prove it. So for me, I think people are aware on that defense how good they can be. The linebacker spot, we didn't even mention Jamin Davis, their top draft pick, from Kentucky, middle linebacker. Just a freak athlete. The guy really is out there showing speed, power, burst. I'm expecting a huge rookie campaign from Jamin Davis. I so much so that I, told a colleague that I think Jamin Davis will be in the running for the Defensive Rookie of the Year. I truly believe that because of what he has in front of him in that front four, what he has coming around the edges on him in Montez Sweat and Chase Young, and now what he has in the secondary behind him and Will Jackson, McCain, and Curl company. There's just loaded pieces there for him to be successful in his rookie campaign. Today, another linebacker that stood out was Cole Holcomb. Cole Holcomb rocking the mullet. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I'm not a fan of the mullets. I might want to cut that off, Cole, but he made a great play out there today. Just an athletic play, one hand. He knocked the ball down a pass that Ryan Fitzpatrick was trying to fit in the seam. And it was just one of those athletic plays that made you scratch your head like, man, that was really impressive. So, you think about Cole Holcomb, in that position, that middle linebacker spot. You think, that they needed to get more athletic, they needed to get more physical. Well, I always thought Holcomb was really one of the better young linebackers. And, to be able to pair him up with Jamin Davis could be a good look for the Washington football team's defense. Practice ended with Dustin Hopkins. Ron Rivera gathered troops into the middle of the field, talked to him for a little bit. And, normally they do the little sprints and stuff afterwards. So I guess he, put it on Dustin Hopkins. Hey, you make this 40-plus yard field goal with everybody around you, the pressure's on. They don't have to run. They don't have to do anything more. It's over. You probably can get out of here. Guys are probably already looking to get to 95 to head home. So guess what? Dustin Hopkins knocks it right down the middle of the pipes. Practice was over, a lot of hooping and hollering, but it was great camaraderie out there today. And again, minicamp, it's early. It doesn't mean anything at the end of the day, but you do want to get good work in. And I think for the Washington football team, they found some young guys that have the potential to add to this football team. There's some other players that stood out to me over the 3 days. I think David Bada, defensive tackle. I kept saying to myself, man, 62 is doing some things out there. That's David Bada. Is he going to make this roster? Is he going to make this team? It's going to be tough. Let's call it like it is because, you've got such a deep defensive line. It's your best unit. And, for anybody to try to crack into that, it's going to be tough. It just truly is. But nevertheless, he's performing. He's putting out good tape out there for other teams who may need to look into bringing in defensive linemen on their team for their final 53-man roster. So, All this isn't for naught. If you're not going to be here regardless, you still are having tape on you. And as they say, the eye in the sky doesn't lie. So he's putting out some good tape. He stood out to me. There's some other guys that I think have shown, a knack to be able to do things. And then, of course, the Terry McLaurins of the world, he just looks so smooth and solid in his third year. I mean, he looks really good. Like, he's ready to take even a bigger step in his career. And maybe this year's the year he becomes that household name wide receiver. People have him like a fringe top 10 receiver, but maybe this is the year that he definitely cracks that lineup of top 10 receivers around the NFL, and everyone knows about him. I know defensive coordinators know a lot about Terry McLaurin, but I think outside of the DMV around this beltway, people know about him. But I think outside of it, people are going to have to start seeing if he can be, that guy for this football team, and if he can take that next step with some of the weapons that they now have in Curtis Samuel, who wasn't out there, but nevertheless, they expect some great things from him. You bring in Humphreys, to be in the slot. There's going to be some good problems for this football team. There's going to be some tough cuts. There's going to be some tough releases. Some guys may have to get moved, and these are the good problems that good football teams have. When you think of the perennial playoff team, Super Bowl contenders, the Patriots jump to mind, obviously, before Tom Brady left. But now even the Buccaneers, with Tom Brady down there. Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes, and Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers. You think of all these teams, Russell Wilson and Seattle. These are things that they have to do. Pittsburgh, Ben Roethlisberger, Mike Tomlin. Guys, when they expect to make bigger money, sometimes those teams move them. Sometimes those teams let them walk because there's a method in how they build and how they do things. And I think with Washington, they're starting to see a little bit of how that's done. And you have so much competition that you're going to have to make some tough cuts. If a young guy is out playing an old veteran who's making a lot of money, that's the name of the game. They're going to move that veteran if they feel like they can get younger. And I think that's what happened with my good friend Morgan Moses. Not that I know that's what happened. They decided to go younger, and Morgan also had a decent contract size-wise. So they decided they're going to go younger. They have Cosme, and you bring in Leno to play the left tackle. And then on the right side, you can put Lucas over there. Listen, you save money for your cap. It gives you, chance to maneuver and do some other things. It's going to be interesting, in my opinion, to see what they do with Landon Collins. He's not practicing yet. He's still working his way back from his Achilles injury from last year, and God knows. Not that I did it on a pro level, because I absolutely didn't. I did it just playing pickup basketball, but I ruptured my Achilles, and that's been one of the toughest things I've ever had to come back from, and I'm still not back, and it's been 3 years. So that's a tough injury, let alone for a high-priced athlete, to come back from that. So he's not practicing, but again, when you see days like what McCain had today, when you see Cam Curl, his continued development and emergence back there, you start to wonder, like, what are they going to do with Landon Collins? Where does he fit in the big picture here? Because he's got a big contract. They signed him for a lot of money 2 seasons ago. He's got a big contract. He's coming off an injury. He's not even practicing yet. It's going to be interesting to see how that develops when training camp comes around. What they'll do with Landon Collins. And if they do feel like they want him here, I just don't know how you can pay someone so much money and not start them. So it's going to be interesting to see how this stuff plays out. But as always, folks, definitely appreciate you checking me out. I had tweeted I was going to drop some notes out for you. They're on Twitter as far as, who stood out today. There's video on there from the practices. Appreciate all the support with that. And as always, make sure you follow the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And if you want, now you can watch the podcast. But I will say this, people are starting to get back to work. They're starting to get in their cars, so now you have that option to listen to the podcast. I don't recommend you watch if you're in your car. Make sure you're home safely or in your office safely sitting down to do that. But while you're driving, you can definitely check us out again on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, to name a few. We're on most of the major carriers, so I definitely appreciate everyone out there. Training camp in about 5 weeks, Richmond, Virginia, the 27th. We'll be down there. Look forward to seeing some of you, and it'll be good to get the fans back. It's exciting to see the fans getting back out. Hopefully we're all done with COVID at that point. If not, still be responsible, and look forward to seeing some of you guys down there. So, as always, everyone, have a good evening. Appreciate the support. Take care.